Now we can really talk about a fairy tale with the first talking about the folk tales, because there is a strong connection between the two genres, these two types of stories. In fact, many fairy tales started out as folk tales. So, what's a folk tale? How did you characterize them? Yeah. Well, they're old stories, traditional stories. They were passed down orally within culture from generation to generation, so they changed a lot over time. I mean, every storyteller or maybe every town might have had a slightly different version of the same folktale. That's right. There's a local difference, and that's why we say folktales are communal. By communal, we mean they reflect the traits and the concerns of a particular community at a particular time. So essentially, the same tale could be told in different communities with a certain aspect of the tale adapted to fit the specific community. Not the plot. The details of what happens in story would remain constant. That were the thread that held the tale together, but all those elements like the location or the characters might be modified for each audience. Okay, so what about the fairy tales? They also are found in most cultures, but how are they different from folk tales? I guess the first question is what is a fairy tale? And don't anyone say a story with a fairy in it, because we all know that there are very few fairy tales actually have those tiny magical creatures in them. But what else can we say about this? Mary. Well, they seem to be less realistic than folk tales, like they have something improbable happening, a frog turning into a prince. Well, that's another commandment royalty, a prince or a princess. And a fairy tales also seems to take location as nowhere and everywhere at the same time. What's the line of how do all the stories start? Once upon a time in a faraway land. Well, in the case of a folktale, each storyteller would specify a particular location and time. Thus, the time and location will differ for different storytellers. With the fairy tales, however, the location is generally unspecified no matter who the storyteller is. The try and fairy will come up back points in a few minutes. I thought that the fairy tale was just a written version of an older folk tale. Well, not exactly, though that is how many fairy tales developed. For example, in the late 18th century, the Grimm brothers traveled throughout Western Germany, recording local folk that they are eventually published as fairy tales, but not before undergoing process of revolution. Now, a number of things happen when oral text gets written down. First, the language changes. It becomes more formal, more standard. Some might say less colorful. It's like the difference in your language depending on whether you're talking to someone or writing them a letter. Second, when an orally transmitted story is written down, an authoritative version with a recognized author is created. The communal aspect gets lost. The tale no longer belongs to the community. It belongs to the world, so to speak. Because of this, elements like place and time can no longer be tailored to more generalized to any audience. On the other hand, description of a character and segments can be developed more completely. In folktale, the characters might be identified by name, but you don't know anything more about them. But in the fairy tale, people no longer have to remember plots. They're written down, right? So more energy can be put into the elements of the story, like character and setting. So you get more detail about the characters, about where the action takes place, what people's houses were like, whether there are small cabin or grand palaces. And it was investing that energy because the story now in book form isn't in danger of being lost. These details won't be forgotten. If a folk tale isn't repeated by each generation, it may be lost for all time. But with a fairy tale, it's always there in the book, waiting to be discovered again and again. Another interesting difference involves the change in audience. Who's there in the story and metaphor? Folk tales were originally intended for adults, not for children. So why is that fairy tales seem targeted to children nowadays?